Welcome to The Thriving Marriage, the podcast for those who want to get their spouse back in love with them and truly thrive.
You'll learn why 95% of people don't save their marriage and the secret method no one else is talking about that will change everything for you. Are you ready? Let's turn tragedy to triumph.
Here are your hosts, international marriage experts, Marc Johnston and Heather Choate.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast. You might see that I have someone different with me. This is not Heather, obviously, my business partner. This is my wife, Jen. So Jen has graciously agreed to join me on the podcast this week. And, you know, seeing as how that Jen and I just celebrated our 15th anniversary, I thought it would be a good point here on the podcast to talk about a marriage inventory, you know, examining our marriage. And this is something that I think actually would be a good idea to do on a, you know, not every week or anything, but, you know, a somewhat regular basis, or just, you know, on occasion, just to see where you are at in your relationship. Jen and I, we like being around each other and we enjoy each other's company. But, you know, there always could be, you know, something that's being left unsaid, something that's not being addressed. And I think it's good to actually take a moment to examine, okay, are we really doing as well as we think we are? Mm-hmm. The whole point of this, you know, of course, is to be open and honest with each other. You know, ideally, this is something that your spouse agrees to and that you don't force them into. Otherwise, I think it's, you know, it'd just be a little bit awkward there. But yeah, any thoughts before we just kind of dive right into this?
Yeah, we've asked some of these questions before of each other, sometimes casually, sometimes, yeah, like on a date. Just to check in, you know, nothing really like serious, but just, you know, what are we doing good? What can we do better? It's always good questions to ask. So should we dive in?
Yeah, let me just get into this. So once again, like if you want to do this with your own spouse, you know, it doesn't have to be these questions, but, you know, this would be a good place to start. So question number one, is our marriage how we expected it to be before we were married, or maybe when we were first married?
I actually am surprised how much some of it is exactly how I pictured of it. And the way I got there was not the way I pictured it. Like the outcome is like, oh, you know, like I always thought of having 5 kids, and I always thought of taking lots of trips together and being very close family culture. And, you know, just being a house where everybody likes to congregate and just kind of a fun place to be. So I feel like we are that. But how we came to that is always a journey. Mm-hmm. So what do you think?
What I find interesting is that, you know, in our early relationship, I thought we had the typical like early relationship. There's, you know, I'm going to just say there's a lot more, this is going to sound bad. There's a lot more like what we thought was a lot of passion. We're like, okay, well, not more passion, but there's a lot of like of that sort of, you know, this is the new relationship sort of thing. And I thought, okay, this is probably as good as it's going to be. And I'm actually, you know, I don't know if I would say surprised, but it's nice to feel like I have more connection. Mm-hmm. I would say I'm more in love now than I thought I could be back then, because I thought, okay, like this is the time that we have together without kids and without mm-hmm. lots of extra responsibilities. Jen and I were still finishing up school at that time. But yeah, if anything, it's more fulfilling now than I think it was even back then, which is a nice turn.
I'm glad to hear you say Yeah. Well, why is that? Would you?
No, that's it.
Yeah.
I
Like,
guess that's a good
why
follow-up
would you
question.
think that? Not that I don't disagree.
Well, no,
but...
what's interesting about this, I think what's made Jen and I closer than we have been, towards the beginning of the relationship, is because of some of the trials, some of the hard points that we've had in our relationship. It's comforting to know that even if we have something difficult, that Jen is going to be there for me. That I've seen the kind of support that she has provided during difficult times, and it provides a lot of comfort. It has allowed us to be very open with each other, very communicative. There's not really anything that we hide at this point, and that just feels really nice.
I mean, by hiding, like, annoying habits that you might not know beforehand, which actually become like sometimes the eccentricities on good days are kind of funny quirks.
Yeah.
So you learn to live with things. I think that's one thing that makes things feel smooth, is you decide on what's really important, and then some of the other little things, even if it's not your style, you just kind of let go. Like, it's not really a battle to fight. If, like, one of the annoying things I do is I save every bit of food and I put it in the refrigerator, and then Mark throws it out. So, like, it's just not a battle. Like, we just decide, okay, we have our own way of doing
containers of, anyways.
So that's the point. Like, instead of getting annoyed, just being like, okay, that's the thing they do, but it's not a deal breaker. So we're just gonna let that go. So we do that sometimes really well for each other, I think.
So the next question here, I think, is a good one, specifically because it gauges beliefs or the views of your partner. Sometimes when I'm talking with clients, I really stress that narrative, or the, if we're using other terms, it would be like the beliefs about the relationship, or how you view the relationship, which is, you need a healthy view of the relationship for it to be healthy, to be able to interact well. So what has it been like being married to each other? Do you want me to go first?
Sure, you go first.
Being married to you, Jen, I feel there's a lot of acceptance constantly. Like, if there's an evening that I just need for myself, you're completely okay with it, and that's nice. Also, if I need to talk to you, you're right there. Last night, I was really tired yesterday, and I needed to talk to someone, to vent to someone, and Jen was right there. I think it feels really nice to have you, knowing that whatever it happens to be, we talk about it, everything. I will sometimes talk about work. We sometimes talk about current events. We sometimes talk about our own fears or struggles, and have always been a good partner to have those conversations with. I've never felt like I needed to hold anything back.
Thank you. That's very nice. Being married to Mark, I think, like, during, like, the dating process back in college, I always wanted to choose somebody that I could have lots of fun with, like adventure, someone that was going to bring out a lively side of me. Because sometimes I can be a little subdued and quiet. So I wanted somebody that would push me to be a little bit more in that way, like a little more comfortable with myself, a little bit more comfortable doing things that might be a little bit difficult but exciting. And I feel like I chose the right person, because you are very supportive, and I think we see the best, or we give each other the benefit of doubt when we talk about big plans or dreams, and I like that we can dream big. And sometimes it's silly because you might, at one point before we had this business and Marc had just graduated, we talked about having a business like this or Marc doing something like this. And I was like, yeah, I can totally see you doing that. And other big things. I feel like you're that person. And I love seeing possibilities and then accomplishing them with you, because it means a lot to me to pursue things together, even if I might just be on the sidelines cheering. I feel like I like being part of Team Johnston.
I've always felt like even things like this, even though this is, say, my business, it wouldn't have happened if you hadn't been there to support me.
Right, because it's difficult whenever you start something new, whatever that may be, having a child. You want your partner to be like, you can do this, even on the days where it feels like you can't and you're an imposter. Like, I don't know how to parent, but you're like, yes, you do.
Mm-hmm.
Just reminding each other of what's inside of us. I think that's always important.
So, we've lasted 15 years.
Right.
Which I'm going to say is an accomplishment. What made that possible, do you think?
I think depending so much on our strengths and focusing on that, because we've talked about lots of times how the very thing you love about the person is always also the thing that makes them difficult to live with.
Mm-hmm.
And so just that focus on that side of the coin, and then not just forgetting that, the shadows or other things exist, but being like, okay, well, I'm going to push you towards the healthy side of your gifts, the presence that you bring. And so I think always just kind of helping the person kind of pivot a little bit, if anything needs to get changed.
No, I think that's absolutely right to kind of sum it up. I think it's having those positive assumptions about each other, like, so that if you are struggling with something, I know, okay, well, Jen does well with this, this, and this. She's struggling with this right now, so something must be getting in the way. I think we have defaulted to those positive assumptions
Mm-hmm.
very consistently, and which makes it really easy, I think, to recover when there's any arguments, when there's any damage done. We're able to default back to those positive beliefs about each other, those positive assumptions. I think that's really made the marriage resilient.
Right, or even during our difficult times, just remembering how much of the difficulty is probably not because of, like, it's external forces, not just you. Like the person had a hard day, the kids were up all night, maybe the person has an illness.
I think we're talking about the same thing. We say, okay, I might say Jen is normally very calm, and she's normally very loving, and she's normally very understanding. So she's not that today. There must be another reason for this. It's not that Jen is not these things anymore.
And not making assumptions of, oh, she's probably mad that I want to, go do this, or because I bought that, or because I'm starting a business, or just not making assumptions, maybe checking into, be like, I see that you're off today. How can I support you?
I think we're talking about the same principle, but no, it's good. I think
elaborating. Yeah.
So we've had some rough patches. This next question. So what specifically has helped us get through these the most? Now I put this in here. A lot of these questions thus far, Jen and I have been answering very positively. But if you're running through some of these yourself, make sure that you're just very open about it. Jen, that if we have some concerns, we can be open about it. It's just we haven't felt like we needed to bring any of them up right now. So with this one specifically, it's recognizing what has helped each of us get through those rough patches, like recognizing the strength there. Like we were just talking about, having those positive assumptions about those positive beliefs about each other in the marriage, it does help a lot with the resilience. And I think this is an important piece to recognize here. So what has helped us get through the rough patches that we have?
I forget who, I think it's Stephen Covey. He talks about having an emotional bank, like a piggy bank. And so when you have to make a withdrawal, hopefully you've been depositing lots of positive experiences, lots of positive feedback, so that when times where you don't get along, or you have to say something difficult, or you have a disagreement, you have that, reserve of goodwill to kind of get you through it.
Mm-hmm.
And so just like mentally checking in every now and then to be like, how full is our piggy bank?
I hadn't thought of that when I put this question down or when we were discussing them ahead of time, but no, I think that's really accurate. I think the other, I lost my train of thought from this in the middle of speaking.
Elaborate more what you think.
Yeah, give. Okay. I had a really great answer. I
sure
promise.
It'll come. Yeah. So I think about that a lot, not just with my husband, with my children, with other relationships. I do a mental check-in with myself, and that's why when I was choosing someone to marry, I thought a lot about that, like a lot about how are we going to feel not just okay, but super fulfilled. Like, I wanted to have someone I was playful with, that would like to do fun things, was a little easygoing, wouldn't mind when I get really overly emotional. So like ahead of time, I thought about all the fun we were going to have. And I tried to, all those tiny things that you don't think are really matter, like the trips we go on, or the game nights, or making dinner together. Those are the emotional currency for me.
And I did remember. I did. You might have heard me typing there. I don't know how well the microphone picks it up. I had to remind myself. So I thought, because I can think of a few very specific, really rough times, and I think what's really helped me get out of those or helped me move on. I think you've had a really strong future orientation when we've discussed problems. It's not that we dwell so much on what has happened or what is happening, and all those pains. It's more, you've always kind of gravitated towards, okay, what do we do? And, what's going to happen next? I can remember, a very specific time, and I know I was very depressed, and I felt like I was stuck in life, and that's, you were right there, really pushing us towards, okay, what do we do about this, and what's going to happen next, and how do we, and you were involving me in that discussion. But so that, I think that's what helped me the most in many of our rough times.
Right. And I would say that's a strength of ours as a couple. Everybody's going to have their own couple strengths. Like maybe you're very meticulous and organized and you're methodical, but
that's not us.
That's not us. That might be you, and that's great. But ours is definitely this positivity and optimism for each other and as a couple. Like it's our together strength. And sometimes when you get depressed or in those moods, you may forget. But I know that you will remember. As long as I prod you a little bit.
Yeah, we might be sounding like we're like, oh, we're really happy and we have all this great things, but no, we definitely have weaknesses.
Right, but this is the strength that carries us forward, and you have your own personal strength that carries you forward, and it's okay if that's not yours. Find what yours is as a couple, and remind each other of that during the hard times.
So the next question: what is something that I need to provide more of for my partner, which brings us into kind of some of those, I was just talking about some of maybe the weaker areas. Yeah. I'll start this one. I think that I could really do much better with a lot of follow through. We, as mentioned, we're not like this super organized couple. We have some big dreams, but we don't always have the best follow through, and I feel like that I could do more of that, including I know that generally appreciates when I do things for her, engage in projects around the house, and I do feel like I could probably provide more of that. She lights up when I will spend a Saturday working on the yard with her, or doing something, fixing something up around the house. And there's many things that I could do more of there.
Yeah, and I think that's why that is particularly important to me, is that is a love language of mine, acts of service. And acts of service is definitely a follow through kind of thing. And yeah, sounds good. What can I provide more for Mark? Let me think.
It's an awkward question. Well, I don't know. I might argue.
Okay. I think I could maybe communicate better when I'm having difficult times, when I'm feeling emotional. I could be like a little more grounded, I would say. Sometimes my optimism leads me not to be very grounded in reality. And I think I could be a little bit more like down to earth about things.
I'm not meaning to point out things, but like, are you talking about like, there are times when it seems like you're going along, even though there's like these spikes of like,
yeah, just
really
forgetting, you know.
I think it's when you forget yourself.
Yeah. So I think just being a little bit more of what Mark actually brings to relationship, a little more calm and understanding, and willing to ask questions more than I do before making assumptions, perhaps. Yeah.
Which leads us to, what do I believe I provide plenty of for my partner? Do you want to go further? Should I?
Sure. What do I provide plenty of for my partner?
And I want to point out, like, this isn't to like say pat ourselves on the back. This is to maybe help recognize our own strengths, or help our partner recognize where we feel like we are strong, which I think is a good thing. I can remember a specific time with Jen and I where we were having some difficulty recognizing, the efforts and strengths of each other, and until we sat down to really say, okay, what's going on? Why are we struggling a little bit here? And so I think this is a good thing to recognize in ourselves.
Okay, so I think something I could provide better is this planning aspect to life. Like, I have a list of things that need to be done. They're not exciting. They're like the nitty-gritties of life. And I think I could be better at not just executing them, but talking to my partner about which of these things will you execute, and helping my partner follow through too. So that I feel like there's no resentment, that feeling like I have to do all this list of boring things. But like that we're gonna do it together, and we've talked about it. So I'm not like maybe demanding, but like, okay, this is what has to be done. How do you want to break this down? Just a little more of that would probably really help our lives, I would imagine.
No, Jen and I talk about this sort of thing. It's just to be very transparent. I do need help with organization at times, and that has kind of, it sounds like that's what you're referring to.
Just like specific plans. Like sometimes we can be a little too last minute with things, and then they don't work out exactly how we wanted, but that's because we weren't, being getting those things done that might not be exciting. And I think that's where we do struggle. So
then what is the converse? What do I believe I provide? Wait. I think I got ahead of myself. I didn't answer the question. I didn't answer the question. So what do I provide plenty of for my partner? I think you've mentioned some of that, and you've told me many times what one of the things that you appreciate is I provide a very grounding, sort of calm experience. I know that anytime that you are having a hard day, you come to me, and you know that I'm going to listen to you, and I can hear you out. So, I mean, years of working in the mental health field, I would say it's helped me to be a really good listener, and I think that's something
You are.
you appreciate.
I also want to tell you something that you do. I think you ask questions that help me examine my own behavior, but in a non-judgmental way, which is really difficult. And you do that well. Like I might be upset, but I might not know exactly why I'm upset. I'm just really upset. And so you might ground me by being like, "Whoa, let's explore that for a moment. Like, why do you think that is?" So without just jumping to conclusions, you take the time to figure it out with me, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. What is something that I would like more of from my partner? And this is, we were reviewing the questions and we're like, oh, that's an awkward thing to.
I don't know. Like I feel like you've told me recently. We've talked about we don't really get out on dates.
No, well, you're saying, what would you like more of from me?
Well, I think okay. Yeah, I don't know. Were you gonna say something like that? Like more quality time like that, alone time?
That would certainly be good. That's actually not what first came to mind. I think that would be, with 5 kids, we have 5 kids. It's sometimes hard to get time to ourselves, but so I will certainly say that would be a good thing. I really appreciate the side of you when you are adventurous and we're getting out and trying new things. I mean, you know me from, when we do get out, I'm liking new experiences, and I would like, that would be, I guess that flows into getting out for more dates. But it really, I think I really enjoy our relationship, especially in those moments.
Mm-hmm. We have talked about how in the last few years we had a baby in the NICU for like, a few months.
It was like a long time.
Yeah, and then he came home on a baby monitor for 6 months.
Heart monitor.
Yeah. So we went through some really trying stuff that people might not have known about, and it just kind of took us. I mean, our relationship, I guess, took a little bit of went on the back burner for a while. Not that it wasn't unhealthy, but it just wasn't flourishing as much as it was because the focus was not on.
Yeah, no, yeah, our baby is healthy now,
yeah.
By the way. But yeah, for a good 6-7 months, it was kind of
right
up in the air, and yeah, I think it was around that time when we started having less time. We still managed with 4 kids somehow.
That pushed us over a lot. And I think we both kind of not just lost ourselves as a couple, but lost ourselves as I felt like I wasn't able to be myself as much. So I feel like maybe what you could provide more of, is that the question?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Is time for me to actually, just be me, not just as a couple, but just also have that space to be like, well, what is it that makes me feel accomplished? I don't want to lose that, and I think sometimes that can get lost in the shuffle of priorities. And then it is important because then when I feel fulfilled, I feel like I'm a better mom and wife, friend.
Yeah, we recently got a lot of projects done around the house.
And no, really good.
I'm not saying we, but it was.
Well, I wanted really to do it.
I provided the framework so that you could take care of those things, but I could see how happy you were.
Right. I love getting into flow of a project. Like I don't get into flow with 5 kids, and I really need that. And I realize how happy I am when you provide that time where I can have experience it like that. Of just not losing myself, finding myself again, and hopefully I provide that for you. I try to be conscientious because I know that's a need of mine. So
I think we've been expressing a lot. The next question was, if I'm needing something more from my partner, I wanted to balance that out with, okay, what do I appreciate about my partner? But we've been very. I think this whole time we've been expressing a whole lot of appreciation. I don't think that's anything that we're.
Yeah, I don't think we struggle with positive regard. I think other things, but not so much that one usually.
All right, so then where would we like us to be as a couple in 3 years' time?
Oh, I do want to say something about that question 8, before we move on.
Appreciation.
Yeah. Something when we first got married 15 years ago, I was like thinking to myself that since our relationship, felt it was so special, I wanted to make sure that I didn't ever disparage it in front of other people. Like sometimes the girls would get together or whatever and be like, can you believe what, so and so did? They're so lazy, they don't help me with anything. Even if we did have problems, I wasn't going to just lay them out in front of other people. So I was very careful about who I shared things with and why. So I feel like I've treated our relationship with appreciation. Like it's precious, so I'm only going to share things that matter with someone for a reason, which I do. I open up to people, but I don't just gab about difficulties just to gab about it.
You're saying you've been very conscious about protecting.
Yeah, something that's very precious to me.
Being appreciative of the relationship.
Right. And if I do talk about it, I'm going to try to talk about it in positive ways. Not that I'm dismissing things that need to get fixed, but just I'm very conscientious about my language with it. And that's something I've always tried to do on purpose.
I think I've shared with you. I have tried to do something, not that I get around with guys and we talk about our wives. That's just not something that guys do.
But women do it quite frequently. But
maybe I'm just not hanging out with the right kind of guys.
Not always in a bad way. Just sometimes just to be like, please help me. I don't understand, or just trying to process because maybe their husbands don't process.
But I know I remember consciously making a decision early on, not to use disparaging remarks towards you, which sounds like okay, and no duh, but like to be very careful about how say how I just put out comments about you or your abilities, your body, your how you look and other things. But anyways, it's related to that appreciation, being very conscious about how we talk to and talk about our partner.
Right, because a way you appreciate something is how you care for it. That's why I was coming back to the idea.
It was a nice idea to come to. I mean, that's not where the question was, but it was a good point to have, and I think it is important. We talked quite a bit today about having that positive regard.
Right, and it's never too late to start. So if you grew up in a family where no one did this, and you never thought to do this, or it's hard to do because you don't have any positive examples, it's never too late to start.
I would say that in my family, that wasn't a normal thing. We had 8 kids in our family, so there wasn't like a lot of sit down discussions where my parents would sit me down and be like, I really appreciate you. We didn't have those.
But also your family had this optimism also, and they
have this easygoing.
They're easygoing. I didn't ever hear any sort of disparaging remarks.
No, there certainly wasn't that either.
There's not that either. Like they're very wonderful.
Oh, no, I'm not trying to make my childhood out to be some like desolate wasteland of emotion or care.
A great family.
So where would we like us to be in 3 years? And this is important because this is not just we've talked a lot about what's going on and in the past, but also to have a fulfilling relationship, it's important to kind of identify, are we growing? Are we actually moving forward? And, having some goals for that, making sure that we are moving in a direction that we both want to go.
This is an interesting question because of recent events. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. And I do feel like that's tripping me up a little bit, if I'm going to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me to not know what the plan is in a general sense if the world doesn't know.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe because I have some anxiety for the world in this way, it's especially important that I take time to consider where I'd like to be. So at least I feel like we're going to be okay as a family, and usually I'm very good at this, but I know that I've struggled we were in Pennsylvania, so we had a total shutdown where we just stayed at home with our family here, and there were so many unknowns, like is school going to happen, work be affected. So I think I had struggled for a little bit, but now I'm starting to make some plans. And in fact, today we made some plans for our kids' schooling. I was like, oh, that feels really good. You know, even though we haven't taken steps yet, just to have that like idea of where I'm going is just it relieves a lot of stress. So
it sounds like you're looking to have more certainty.
Right. And it's nothing that, you know, on a personal level that's not being provided. It's just, you know, there's a lot of unease right now in the world today. And so that's why I think it's especially important to center yourself. And I'm not all the way, I haven't completely done that. Like I'm working on feeling centered and okay with the next 3 years. But I do feel like we'll continue to have more adventures and travel more. I'm pleased with what we decided to do for the children. It will make us a little bit more flexible, so we could, you know, do some more traveling once things kind of ease up in the country. And that's exciting for me.
Yeah. I think for myself, I'm looking for more comfort in the home. We live in a pre-1900s home, and it's been needing some fixing up. So either, you know, Jen's been really good about recently about getting on top of getting into projects to fix it up, but either to continue that or to move into a new home. I think that's the direction I would like to go in. It's really important to me that we are providing our kids with like a stable environment, a comfortable environment, like that their childhood is pleasant. And so whatever we need to do to either financially support that or to, you know, get on with projects, I think that's where I would like to be. In terms of us, I'm trying to think of like what we would really like. I think what you're saying is being able to get out on adventures.
And yeah,
it's weird. Like I don't really have any huge ambitions for. I'm generally very pleased with our relationship, and I don't really see, you know, a need to really push for more closeness, more connection, more, you know, much of anything. So a lot of like the longer term plans are more, say, business, home, fun oriented.
I think that's how everybody's feeling these days, is recentering their own family life. So it does feel more comfortable and secure. And I think that we're trying to fortify that right now, and that feels good. And I want to keep doing that. And I anticipate with, you know, our baby is now 2. So having even more time as, you know, he gets older to get out there and do things as a couple.
Yes,
do more.
That would be one of the goals, having more time for just the 2 of us. It's 5 kids.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of Jim Gaffigan, the comedian.
He says 5
kids. We have 5 kids. Anyways, the last question here, this is not really part of the inventory, but more, you know, just thoughts. If you had to pass on one critical piece of advice to new couples or couples who are just starting to reestablish their relationship, what would that be? What would be the one thing that could really help them to be healthy?
Several things. I think this idea of, because I hear a lot of times people talk about how, you know, that idea of passion and love, and then how it fizzles and you just stop being in love. But then you're like, it's a partnership. I've always kind of disagreed with that. I do remember someone giving us a piece of advice when we were first married, and we were all snuggling, cuddly, and we won't. Yeah. So this person said, "Hey, that's all cute and good that you guys are like that, but just realize it doesn't last." And then I remember
what they said specifically. They said, you know, eventually relationships are all going to turn into partnerships.
it does need to be a partnership. You do have to get things done. But I just remember, recently being all cuddly with Marc in the same kind of way, and it triggered that memory. And I was like, we're still like that. And it was a very pleasant sort of thing to realize that, there was times where we didn't feel as cuddly and close, but we could always come back to that. Like, it didn't disappear. You know what I mean? Like, didn't just become about business. We could still keep that. We had to work on it, which is another thing that I would tell new couples is you can't just expect that to continue without the investment, which is what I'm talking about with emotional piggy bank. That idea that maybe it does turn into business and partnership if you aren't trying to put positive, not just like the way you talk about them, but like just fun, just having fun together, just having light moments.
What I would say for new couples or newly recovering couples is to make sure that you never fall into the place where you feel like you can't talk about certain things. Whether that is being able to discuss concerns or problems, or being able to discuss what you want and what you would really appreciate. In this line of work, I so often run into people who say, I can't talk to my spouse about this. I'm worried that they would dismiss me, reject me, get upset. And you need to not let it get to that point. Anything kind of approaching that, I think, should be a big red flag. And instead of, getting upset, like, why can't you talk to me? You should be asking them, like, why is this difficult? Why can't, why is it, or why are we struggling to be able to share this sort of thing? So yeah, any new couple, recovering couple, that should be high on your priority list of resolving that, your ability to talk about anything.
Mm-hmm.
Any parting thoughts? You don't have to have any, but
that's a good question to end on. Even when I do see like friends or us when we're struggling, I do see a lot of optimism and hope, because I do see what brought those people together and their strengths. And I do think that you can take those parts of you that were great and remind yourself of that. And just go back to the idea of the very thing that makes maybe your marriage difficult is the very thing that could save it. So if, for us, that I think that's the ability to see the future, to have optimism. So
to be
like
very accepting,
to be very accepting. And sometimes when things feel a little too nebulous, we still need to ground ourselves, but like just being like, okay, I understand that we didn't make those plans right, and they're falling apart, but just like, okay, but we did have a good vision. Let's now go towards that, but maybe this, those parts that aren't as strong, we're gonna work on them to get to that thing that we're able to do well together.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's been great having you here. And so, like I said, the whole point of this was to have a bit of an inventory. And I think this is something that, especially if you're in any remotely decent place with your relationship with your partner, should be done on occasion, just to check in. So many times I hear people say, oh, I had no idea my partner was unhappy, that they wanted something different, that they wanted something more. And that's a lot of what we focused on today. Well, thanks, Jen, for being here. And thank you all for listening. And next week, I think we're going to be having one of our clients talk about their experience and what helped them. And so we'll see you all next week.
Thanks for listening to The Thriving Marriage, your A to Z blueprint for not just surviving marriage, but thriving. Until next time, my friends, thrive on.